Thank you for the warm welcome. It's great to see you. My name is Natanail Stefanov, and most probably you have never heard my name. But what you should know is that I'm the most successful, most prominent, and most beloved football player, and this is if you ask my mom. Now, I never became a professional, but I've been working with quite a few professional athletes, and I want to tell you about a few huge problems in sports. And because I know we're at the Web3 conference, my desire is to give you some insights if you want to build in the area that you may know what you could do. So first of all, I'm going to give you part of our background. I'm going to share some of the industry pains. And as you know, the problem for an entrepreneur is a potential solution, meaning you could build some sort of technology to address those pains. I'm going to briefly share what we're building with GRVTY, and then I'm going to share another few Web3 opportunities in terms of products, meaning what is already going on in the industry, as well as what are potential business cases that you could be working on. And finally, for those of you who are interested to collaborate, I'm going to share how we could potentially collaborate. So, are there any sports fans here tonight? Actually, this morning. Good, great. I'm a huge sports fan. I wanted to become a football player. And 6 years ago, when we entered the industry, I had no clue about the sports business. So a brief education part, for tech companies, there are three main pillars if you want to build a business in sports. Performance, which is usually data related to how athletes perform, venue management, stadiums, tickets, etc., and fan engagement. Where we're focused with GRVTY is fan engagement, but there are opportunities all across the area. So part of our background, I told you I'm a huge football fan, and back in 2019, I got invited to join a team called King Football. So we were building NFTs before there was such a thing as an NFT at all. We're building an app that verifies that the merch you have purchased is authentic, so that you could claim it on the blockchain through smart contract, and then it could preserve its value, and then you could resell it, and also purchasers would get access to some exclusive content. By the way, Emil, this is the person who built the technology, so you can talk to him later on. Yes, their team. And then our first customer was a Bulgarian player called Dimitar Berbatov. You may have heard his name. So he was our first customer. He also became our co-founder, which was a great success for us. And then, because for us, Bulgaria was never the market, it's a small market, we started working with the PFA to have the Player of the Year award with our technology, but then COVID struck. So what did we do? Some friends of ours called us, if you know Levski, the largest Bulgarian football club, it was about to go bankrupt. So they asked us, well, can't you do something about it? I'm a huge football fan. I'm a huge Levski fan. So we had to do something about it. And with our technology, we launched a crowdfunding campaign with King Football. And only for 10 days of digital fan activation, we were able to do sales and revenue that was roughly 40% of their annual merchandise sales. So that's how we got into everything related to fan engagement. But anyhow, as I mentioned, Bulgaria was a small market. And back in 2022, we were finally able to relocate to the UK because we knew the problems in football weren't just in football, they were in sports. And we spoke to a very prominent tennis manager, and he said, well, what you're doing is great, but we're tennis, we're not football. So that's why we decided to rebrand to GRVTY. And our big vision was to build a new type of next generation social media which addresses many of the pains of social media, especially for sports. If you know, have you heard of OWN, the new type of social media? If you haven't heard of OWN, our initial vision was very close to what they're building right now. But then one of the issues building such a big thing, if you know, Europe is very B2B minded, and everyone told us, yeah, you're doing something great, good luck, but no one was really willing to invest in us. So in the meantime, to survive, what were we doing? We were working on some investment deals, M&A deals, because our office is in Mayfair. And for those of you who know this, this is the center of old money. And we've been also working on a few sponsorship deals with many prominent agents. So I'm sharing this, by the way, if you haven't heard, today is it's more a business presentation rather than a technical one. I want to share some of the opportunities if you want to build in the space things that may be relevant for you. So, as I mentioned, probably this is the most important part of the presentation, which are the industry pains, because once you know what are the pains, you could develop solutions, and I'll be glad to share at the end of the presentation what sort of technical products you could do, because beyond the vision of GRVTY, there's so many additional opportunities. So first thing is ownership, as in pretty much any space. And we decided to focus on the US market. If you're following college sports, it's huge right now. There's a thing called NIL, name, image, and likeness, because until 4 years ago, college athletes weren't allowed to be paid anything. And now they're allowed to be paid, but still, one of the issues in the industry is that everyone wants to work with the big clubs, big names, and big stars. So even in America, usually it's the top 2 or 3 stars from the American football and basketball teams that are monetizing anything. Everyone else doesn't get anything. So that's why with GRVTY, we're focused on the long tail of athletes. Second thing is, clubs and athletes don't have access to meaningful data which they could monetize. Right now, data is being monetized by larger service providers, and I can tell you so many examples. I mean, we have confidentiality, but I can tell you very, very big teams and brands and sponsors who have access to tons of data that they can't use, or they don't have access to data at all. The third big issue is sponsorships. Usually they aren't very effective because they're not based on data or brand fit, they're based on whom you know. Meaning, Kyle is my friend, he sponsors me, I'm having a good morning logo on my t-shirt, but then is this relevant? Not necessarily. It's great for me as an athlete to have his logo on, but it's not relevant for him, for example, because they're building in Web3 and I'm building in sports, so there's rarely this fit. Another thing is that many brands prefer to work with influencers and content creators instead of athletes, so athletes are losing ground. And I mentioned the stars and athletes. The other thing is brands to work with influencers and focusing on the long tail. I believe that's also part of the Web3 promise. And last but not least, image rights monetization. Many athletes and clubs have image rights which are worth millions, and they could monetize up to 20 or 30% in the best case scenario. So having this in mind, I want to give you a Bulgarian example. For example, you may know Natanail Stefanov. We had a conversation with some of his Bulgarian sponsors. The main reason to fund him is because he's a Bulgarian, they want to support him, but there's little return on investment. So right now, if you're a sponsor, it's very hard to measure how effective your sponsorship is. So that's why we decided to focus specifically on athletes, not on clubs, because there's, and at the end I'm going to share some Web3 solutions that are already focused on larger teams, but we decided to focus on the long tail of athletes and support them to monetize. So how are we doing this? First of all, we decided to relocate to the US because this is the major market where things are developing, and focus mostly on college sports, having a very localized model, which is also part of the Web3 approach. By the way, something I just want to have a disclaimer that we're Web3 at the back end, but we're really Web 2.5. We are targeting the mass market, which means they don't care what sort of technology you're using. So as Sandra mentioned, our big vision is to democratize the fan engagement, to democratize the world of sports through blockchain and explainable AI. Basically, our mission is to support athletes to make money from their name, image, and likeness by owning the connection with their fans and audience data. So as vague as this may sound, we're starting our first with a fan engagement platform, which does gamified sponsorships with social impact. Let me give you an example. Right now, there are tons of challenges on TikTok, which are one way. Now, imagine if your favorite star, Dmitry Berbatov, who's also a good basketball player, he may do 5 consecutive three-pointers and say, hey guys, whoever replicates or performs my challenge is going to win a prize from my sponsors, Samsung. And the more people participate, the more funding we're going to get for the talented children of Bulgaria. And now, not only you can participate, but you can win prizes and awards. You could participate in leaderboards, win different points, participate in different challenges, which of course, those points could be transferred to specific giveaways and rewards. And also it could be tokenized at a certain point. So that's what we're doing. Points being tokenized at a certain point in time. So right now we're building really a super niche fan community app only for your most loyal fans. We support athletes to own their data, the connection with their fans, to be able to monetize it. That's the initial part, and then we plan to continue and work more in terms of going with supporting them to get sponsorship deals, going big into gamification, and also in terms of technology, chain abstraction is what we're following. As I mentioned, until now we've been building initially on Near. Right now we're part of the Solana ecosystem, but we want to go multi-chain because we believe this is the right way to go for a business. Of course, we're utilizing data. We're using explainable AI, not because of the buzz, but because you can very quickly make it for the end user much easier to support and address their needs. Now, if you want to build in the Web3 space, this is our approach, and we believe it would be very helpful for you as well. First of all, having a very local approach. So instead of going globally, we want to work only initiatives in San Francisco, only initiatives in New York City, only initiatives in Austin, so that you could utilize local data, which makes much more sense for brands, and having local outreach. The other thing is gamification. We're focusing on Gen Z, and 90% of them regard themselves as being gamers. So we believe that's the right way to go. And you've seen multiple mini games on Telegram and other platforms. And we also want to combine this with real sports to get young children go out and play some real games, not just stay on their phones. And last but not least, having social impact, meaning every athlete that we work with is supporting a local social initiative that they care for. Now, in terms of market, especially for tech people, I know it's all about technology, but apparently real innovation is in terms of business model. So we're applying a blue ocean strategy, applying some models that have been working very successfully in the areas of community engagement, sports platforms, and gaming, but build something which is specific of its own. Now, I could very humbly share that very few tech teams in Web3 have the access to the sports world that we have. These are just some of the brands that our team members have been working with, meaning if you're building something which may be relevant for the sports industry, I'll be glad to discuss at the end. And although we have this access, our approach is bottom up. We want to work with the long tail, with amateur teams, with high school teams, with university teams. If I need to name drop one of the partners we work, if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, we're working with Vayner Sports, which is his sports agency, just to share that we're aiming at the top, but starting from the bottom. And we are in touch with some of the Premier League foundations and clubs on the social impact bit. Now, in our one of the questions that we're constantly getting asked is, okay, are we gonna tokenize what you're doing? We're getting ready for this, and we want to make sure that we would use the right moment. But playable ads is a big thing, which is relevant not just for Gravity, but for many Web3 projects. Have you played Pokemon Go? So we've seen that there are great opportunities for fan engagement at stadiums. So the company, by the way, they're called GRVTY, that developed the AR engine for Pokemon Go, are friends of ours. So we've been having some developments with them as well. Of course, building GraphChain with some give back meme coins at a certain point. So these are products that we have parked on purpose because we want to have very strong focus, but these are all initiatives that could be built. The reason I share this is I want you to have a better understanding of where we're working, if you may be interested. But apart from this, I want to give you a few other examples in the Web3 space that are already running. So I mentioned the three pillars in fan engagement where we're focused. Of course, the most straightforward thing is NFTs and digital collectibles. So if you know, Chili's is if you're interested in sports, they're building a blockchain there, especially for sports. So you could buy different digital memorabilia and digital moments. For example, the NBA Top Shot is such an example. Another one is fan tokens. Socios is such a platform. So many of the big clubs are working with them so that me as a fan, I could buy a fan token and I could have access to exclusive content, to limited edition items. At a certain point, by the way, some clubs are starting to allow fans with tokens to participate in club decisions, which is not that much for global strategy, but for smaller initiatives. And by the way, there are a few clubs that want to go the DAO way. And the third one is gamification and play to earn. So if you like fantasy, because I spoke earlier with a friend that they've been building something in the fantasy space. Sorari is a great example whereby you buy digital cards and you earn points based on the real-time performance of those athletes. So there are more and more initiatives, but once again, things are still with top clubs and the long tail, the 99% of athletes and clubs, there's nothing there. This is the market that we're targeting, and we highly recommend for people who want to start at the beginning to go over there as well. Another thing is related to ticketing. You may know this, the issues with counterfeit tickets all across the industry. Guts is a very interesting example, but if you want to have enhanced ticketing, once again, with exclusive content, AR activations at games, that's great. And also secondary markets whereby the initial issuer of the ticket would keep the value. So there is not going to be black market. This is available in other areas as well, but very big in sports. So right now we've had like the NFL, the Euro Football Cup in 2020. They've experimented, but it's still not mainstream, meaning it's still, I wouldn't say it's early, but it's right about the time to start building in this area. The third one is data management and monetization. So for example, I mentioned what we're building with Gravity is on commercial data. With sports performance data, athletes, they don't own the data either. So there are a few examples of if they own the data, if all the companies that are monetizing on top of them could actually share part of the value added with with the teams. Another thing is fan-generated content. Right now, as I mentioned, as image rights, if you do a video with my image on YouTube, you may monetize it, but I won't be monetizing this. So especially for the younger players, that's a big thing. And Oracle Athlete is an interesting platform you may check out. And the final example that I've given are, I briefly mentioned some of the novel ways for monetization and sponsorships. One of very cool ways is tokenized sponsorships. As I mentioned, sponsorships aren't very effective. So building such sort of an opportunity where the fans who see the commercials and sponsorships and can participate and are incentivized to give feedback in their data is a very interesting initiative. And the final one, which I've put it in last place, but I personally think it's one of the most interesting, is decentralized funding, whereby fans participating in funding the clubs. We had this situation with Levski and many teams that were about to go bankrupt. Fans help just for the sake of living the club. But if you tokenize the whole model, then there's going to be much more commercial value as well. So an interesting platform is the Gods. They've been supporting the Big Three basketball initiative in the US, the football club AFC Wimbledon in the UK. So we see more and more initiatives that are implementing blockchain and Web3 solutions. Now, being mindful of time while we live sports, a part of being sports fans, numbers don't lie. Sports is a huge market. Many people, they tell you if you want to go big, you got to start from a niche. And we've started from a niche, but it's a huge niche. So my call to action to you guys is, if you don't what you want to do or what you want to build, sports is a great place. And I honestly believe that Web3 as a technology could provide much value for the industry. If you want to join, because I've been told by the organizer that it's always good to have a call to action. As a company, we've been bootstrapped, but we're always open for some smart investment if you believe in our mission, in our vision. The second thing is software development. As you saw, our vision is very big, and we have a small team, so we're always open to collaborate with teams who want to build product in this area. And finally, all sort of business and partnership opportunities. As I mentioned, we have great access to the market. So if you'd like to collaborate, ping me. I'll be glad to share, either now or on social media. Natanail Stefanov. I'm pretty social. I'd love to get in touch. These are my contacts also of my business partner Modena in the UK. We're all over the place, mostly UK and US. And I'm glad now to be at home in Sofia, because home is where your heart is. Thank you so much.